Hey guys, ready for another one of these videos? Let's begin. Last week I told you that my game flopped on Steam. So, a few months later, I brought it to the Xbox. Now, I'm not allowed to give you exact sale numbers from individual consoles because of hush-hush NDAs, but let's just say that the numbers were much higher. Discounted sales on Xbox are also more curated, so the numbers from them was also much higher. I owe a lot to the ID at Xbox program, and if you are an indie dev who is planning to bring your games to consoles, I highly recommend that you start with Xbox. These people have created a warm community and I have even met a few of them. The next year I brought the game to Nintendo Switch and later on to PlayStation 4, and by the end of the year 2019 the game was available on all 4 platforms. I don't count phones as platforms, sorry. And so came the 100,000 sales from the 3 consoles combined, also Steam. And no, I'm not going to tell you on which console the game has done best, because I'm under NDA. But what I can tell you, or I don't have to actually tell you because you can figure it out by yourself, is the fact that only 2.5% of my total sales came from Steam. So the question is, why didn't the high sale numbers happen on Steam? Well, simple reason. Just like I said in my previous video, I didn't have marketing knowledge back then. The 100,000 copies sold on consoles came from the store page presence alone. It was all internal. So when someone says it's not Steam's job to sell your game for you, well, the consoles felt that it was their job, and they did their job. At the time, only 30 games was being released on each console per month. On Steam, that number was closer to 30 games per day. So the only concern I had at the time was to make a cover art good enough to turn impressions into store page visits, and a charming enough game to turn the visits into sales. And despite the fact that my cover art still looked like this, it worked. Now, the console markets have become more saturated in recent years, but compared to Steam, they still provide way more visibility. Speaking of saturation, let's talk about Nintendo Switch. Today, Switch is the second most saturated platform when it comes to visibility. My game, however, was approved in an opportune time to be released on Switch. In the beginning, Nintendo was being a bit picky with what indie games they allowed on the platform, but then they opened the floodgates. When I released my game on Switch, the floodgates had only begun to open, and that provided me with a massive boost in sales. The number of games being released on Switch per month was not that different compared to other consoles at the time. The difference was that Switch was a young console, and the total number of games on the platform was fewer. When there isn't much to choose from in the pool of available games, your game gets recommended more often. Also, the sale exploitation that has oversaturated the platform these days was not yet exploited. In fact, my game may have been among the first to have exploited that exploitation. So, conclusion, my game had an easier time competing with other titles both on release phase and post-release phase on Nintendo Switch. In the beginning of this video, I said that I would recommend that you start with Xbox when it comes to porting to consoles. There are multiple reasons to why I say this. One of them is the fact that the blue ocean phase of Nintendo Switch is pretty much over. If it wasn't for that, I would have recommended Switch as your first console instead. But when it comes to long-term visibility performance, I believe that Xbox is still doing better than the 2 other consoles. This could be due to the fact that Microsoft is one of the algorithm kings. So despite the fact that saturation has increased over the years, their machine learning has also improved over the years. Now I know what you're thinking. Johnny, your game is $10, and you say that you have sold over 100,000 copies. So does that mean that you have made
$1 million?
No. See, most of these numbers come from 80% to 90% off discounts, mostly 80%. The total amount of money I've made from this game is way lower than that. Not to mention that the platform holders take a 30% cut from the sales, and there are of course taxes. And my other 2 games that have been released since 2018 haven't made me almost any money. So the money I have made from Shalnor Legends Sacred Lands has technically been my only source of income in the past 5 years. These two games were fun to make, and I promise you they are fun to play, but they are not the popular genre and theme that people wanted. My advice to new indie devs is that if you find success within a formula, stick to the formula. Then, once you have enough money, start messing around and experimenting. If I had taken the assets from this game, improved upon them, and written a new story as well as made new content, I could have made a sequel for it within 2 years. But instead, I decided to make other games, as well as a 3D sequel which has cost me 5 years of unexpected development time. Meanwhile, the money I've made from the first game is drying out. But don't worry for me, the sequel will succeed. I just got a good feeling about it. Ladies and gentle devs, I hope you enjoyed this video. On this channel I will be giving advice both on game development and publishing. I have been an indie dev since 2015, with 8 years of experience. I believe it's finally time to share my knowledge and also failures. So if you are interested, please subscribe.